negotiating with investors. They don't teach that in school. That's a skill that any entrepreneur needs to educate herself or himself about. If you want to succeed and you're competing in a big world, with a competitive product, you have to have a skill to raise money and know how to negotiate equity, dilution for your business, and how you can manage control. It's a very fine line.
This is the CMO and Joe podcast. We interview today's most inspiring chief marketing officers and savvy marketers of lucrative direct-to-consumer e-commerce companies, bringing you insightful stories and tips on marketing, sales, branding, and much more. We bring you the best lessons from the best. Let's get started with your host, Joe Momoh.
Welcome to the podcast, Kate.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe.
Well, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast. You're a ath-leisure trend pioneer, leader in design of traveling clothes, and you've been doing this for more than 15 years, so you have tons of great insights, I bet. But before we do, perhaps give us a little bit of background about yourself, kind of your origin story, and essentially who Kate is.
Well, I was born in Budapest, Hungary in 1976, so everybody can run their numbers about my age and which generation I come from. When you do the math and you kind of know what happened in Eastern Europe, we are the generation that took down the Berlin Wall, right? I was educated in a very disciplined environment, and pretty much everybody either went to the dance class or became a gymnast. So I became a gymnast with a tough Russian coach and competed for many years, which gave me a very structured environment to grow up in. Spoke Russian for a long time too, right, in our schools, until when I turned 18, just couldn't take it anymore, I guess, and I hitchhiked out of my country. So we left with a group of friends and didn't stop until we reached south of France, where I ended up finishing my MBA, and I basically taught fitness to pay for school. And that's where I started selling my first clothing lines, actually. And, a couple of years into it, living in France and now speaking fluently at a time and still, I coached a young girls team as well, with my background, and we became national champions in France 3 years in a row. So the brand that they were wearing, that was called something else from Anatomie at the time, started to become popular, and I was selling wholesale and retail already, 24 years old, barely finishing my MBA, training the kids, taking care of business. So, I just never stopped. And I ended up in the Caribbean, one of the islands that belong to France called Saint Barts and Guadeloupe, and met some American tourists, and they told me, Kate, this brand is so cool and the product's unique, you have to come to America. So with the help of a young American couple, I started doing trade shows in the US, and one of my first trips got me through Miami, just transiting, and that's where I met Shawn, my husband, who was doing menswear at the time. And we basically combined forces, and having designed private labels together for a few years for companies like Bacardi, as you may know, they're Miami-based, Lamborghini, Elite Models Fashion. We worked with Equinox, cigarette offshore racing, like anything sporty and kind of racy and tacky we were doing, until we decided to create our own brand. So he was a former bodybuilder from Ohio, also from a very athletic background. So both of us are very body conscious. We love performance fabrics, tailored styles. So we have a really strong DNA, in just the product category that we pioneered in athleisure, because our work was always more upscale than the competition, because we used the European fabrics that I've always used. So in a nutshell, that's the story. We created Anatomie together in 2006, and fast forward to today, we're still partners and have a little girl together and still work together. He runs product development and design. I run sales and operations and finance. And it's been an evolving roller coaster, basically.
No, that's awesome. That's quite a story. Kind of stepping back a little bit, when you were growing up, you mentioned that you were big into athletics, you being a gymnast, that structured environment. But Did you always imagine you'd be an entrepreneur or even starting your own clothing brand, or is that kind of something you fell into?
Good question. Let's think about it for a second. When you're young and you're kind of just doing your thing, you're just doing it. I'm sometimes even blamed by even the current board and investors, and I don't think I just do. So I guess that was my personality from the start. I just followed my heart, did what I loved, and I guess it eventually turned into this big job, big responsibility as we grow, right? But maybe I'm not a good employee. I'm not sure. I like to follow my own leads. When you're a pioneer, you kind of take the first bullets, and I'm very comfortable with that. We make mistakes, we move on. I don't look back very much. I like to think forward and just always taking things to the next level. And the next thing I'm on your show talking about it. So go figure.
Go figure, absolutely. You mentioned being an entrepreneur, you're kind of taking the first bullets, being a pioneer in the industry. And you mentioned also having this big job, lots of responsibilities. But for you personally, what's kind of like your favorite parts of your role right now at Anatomie?
So I love our customers, and that's how we build the brand. When we first launched Anatomie with Shawn, we did 600 events the first 4 years around the US. Because our line was a little bit more expensive and more European looking than the competition, we had to convince every single lady that these are the best pants that she can have, not just looking good, being comfortable and put together, but also very durable and easy care. So we had a very strong, quick pitch about why we were different, but we had to prove ourselves. So my favorite part has always been reaching our audience and meeting our ladies and seeing their adventures and knowing that I'm part of their world and their wardrobe, whether they're playing golf or sleeping on a plane, on an overnight flight, or walking the dog or teaching the kids at home. I love the fact that they're wearing our clothes and we make their lives better and more comfortable. That never changed. I love that personal connection to our end user.
Absolutely. And from your perspective, do you think that's what are the qualities of building a great customer experience? You kind of already touched on them, but I'd be curious to know what qualities you look for.
Personal connection that builds a brand around the story that they can relate to, I think is very important. That makes us sticky, right? They remember it. It has to be memorable, whether it for whatever reason, if it's funny or personal or life-changing or something good, right? It has to be positive. The way our experience is positive is you get a pair of pants, you think you're just trying something, and next thing you know, you're living in it and you're not taking them off, right? And then you want more. So we become part of their world, part of their wardrobe, and then a bigger and bigger piece of the wardrobe. That's the exciting part. I think a good customer experience also goes beyond expectation. So when you pick up the phone and you expect, to be put on hold and transferred versus somebody picking up right away and having a happy voice that takes care of business for you. I also think speed matters. These are the core values in Anatomie. Number one, personal connection. Number two, we go beyond expectation. We offer a great value for the money and always go an extra mile to make the lady happy. And number three, speed matters. I think in today's world, you can't linger. And we're kind of known for that as well. Every order we get today, she's the same day. It never changed. Versus even talking to investors and other brands and companies where it takes them days, sometimes even a week or two, to get an online order and ship it. So we like to handle things quickly. And I guess my personality shows through, how the business is run from that perspective. I'm very impatient. I don't like standing in line either.
Exactly. That's why speed matters. But I don't want to touch on it too much about the whole pandemic, but I'm curious to know what's kind of been some of the challenges for you in the last 3 or 4 months.
We are an omnichannel lifestyle brand. So half of our business last year was built on wholesale relationships. Anatomie was sailing on high-end cruise ships, Forbes 4 and 5-star properties in their hotel boutiques and spa boutiques. We work with Neiman Marcus and a few hundred specialty stores around the country. So everybody closed for months, right? So talk about challenge. We basically became 90% direct-to-consumer versus a 50-50 split between wholesale and retail. So with that said, the mobile user experience had to get better. The website had to get more efficient. Our brand communication had to make a little more sense, for ladies in the lockdown and not being able to travel so much around the world and be able to experience anatomy in Africa and Europe and Asia and hiking Machu Picchu in the pants, right? Now they are in the Yellowstone or in RV trips in our pants. So that's been challenging, is to stay relevant and stay top of the mind, which we're doing. I've been going live on Instagram a lot and making sure we talk to the community and making sure we become a brand with a purpose. I've been donating pants to nurses. We had extra inventory and they needed them. So, being unselfish is very important these days, I think. And just having a community around the brand that's really a lifestyle brand. I went live with a chef. I went live with, obviously travel agents are logical, but just all kinds of life stories. I went live with a mommy blogger, with a jewelry designer, with a underwear company called Casabella with the Italian owners, and just talked about life and business at the same time. So that's been challenging because I'm not necessarily a seen person. I'm more on the private side. Because when people think about anatomy, they don't necessarily know Kate and Shawn. They just know the brand, which is how we want it. It's not like, let's say, Tory Burch or Ralph Lauren, how they put themselves first. We always put our customers first, and we always said that they are the brand. They are just, I'm just the packaging for it. Because anatomy is about how you feel in the product and the clothes, how I can make you feel. So that's been challenging to kind of come out and open up and just be honest and transparent about everything. In the beginning, I even had to send out a newsletter and told our customers that, ladies, we're reducing the prices on certain items just so we can make payroll, because I don't want to fire anybody, which eventually had to lay off a couple of people, but it's working out for the better. So yeah, those have been the main
challenges.
On the road.
Yeah, I mean, for the record, I love your videos online. I think you're doing a great job building that transparency and authenticity. I think that at the end of the day, really builds the brand. So yeah, I'm definitely a fan and a follower. So
thank you. On the happy side, we got on the Inc. 5000 list. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but the official announcement is August 12th next week. So in a few days, everybody's going to find out. So besides being a Forbes Travel Guide recognized brand and being on the 250 most disruptive brands to watch for 2020, we have also been a top apparel innovator in Apparel Magazine. And now this one, the industry is starting to take notice, which is good because we're always raising money. So it's good to be out there that way.
Absolutely. No, congratulations. That's really awesome news. Stepping back again, I'd love to know, obviously, starting your business and then going to the Inc. 5000 list. There's tons of trials and tribulations and learnings. But maybe what's one thing that you wish you would have known when you first began your career?
Negotiating with investors. And they don't teach that in school, even though I did my MBA and I'm a math major and speak 5 languages. That's a skill that any entrepreneur needs to educate herself or himself about. If you want to succeed and you're competing in a big world, with a competitive product, you have to have a skill to raise money and know how to negotiate equity, dilution for your business, and how you can manage control, operating control versus voting control. It's a very fine line, in the real world out there about that. And I've learned a lot. And I can thank our investors and the board members for coaching me and being patient with me. And not firing me in the process. Because that happens, sometimes VC firms and private equity investing companies, the first thing they do is get rid of the CEO. So I'm grateful that they are giving us an opportunity by believing in what we do and how we do it also.
Absolutely. And yeah, just from talking to you, you're such a resilient person, so much of a go-getter. And you've built lots of skills on the way, like you mentioned. But
you have to learn quickly. You have to pick up things fast, because if you linger, you lose momentum, or you get replaced, or somebody else more resilient takes your place in the marketplace.
Absolutely.
It's like the survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
Right? And I think entrepreneurship is about resilience and optimism. And you can't lose either one of it, no matter what happens. Like whether you're dealing with viruses or hurricanes or lockdowns, you cannot lose your mindset. You have to keep your mind right.
Absolutely. If you have to boil down a unique skill that you say has helped you along the way, what would you say that is?
Endurance.
Endurance.
Yeah.
I like that.
Remember, by endurance we conquer.
That's awesome. I want to get into a little bit more, maybe some marketing industry talk, but I'm curious to know from your perspective, Kate, how has the industry changed from when you first started to now?
So when I first started, specifically in apparel and women's sportswear, there was a lot of power given to big department stores that had big buying powers, whether you were on the high end like us with Neiman Marcus, Saks, Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, or on the lower end, with Macy's, and then going down on the, as you go more mass market. They were kind of ruling the jungle, right? And now look, they're all firing Chapter 11 one after another. So that's a giant change. Very old brands, disappearing right in front of my eyes, such as Lord & Taylor and Brooks Brothers, even jeans companies, True Religion and G-Star. I mean, amazing companies everybody looked up to, just gone so fast the last 6 months. So more power given to authentic, cool brands that have a high-tech component to them, becoming more and more successful and staying more and more relevant, especially in front of a younger audience, is a giant shift. I'm sure not just in the apparel industry, but with a lot of other industries too, like maybe food and real estate and things like that. So, like Apple was born in front of our eyes, right? That's our generation. It's a good example of how things change. Just two kids in the garage come up with a technology that changes our lives. It's the same with our anatomy pants, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of Eastern European gymnast falls in love with a bodybuilder from Ohio, and they make a pant that nobody can even come close, and that's it. Next thing you know, there's a whole world of comfort and style that didn't exist before. Keeping these ladies stylish and put together out there for their adventures. So that's a big change, how you can, with the digital world, how you can market yourself and go viral so fast. That was not possible before.
Absolutely. I love how you mentioned also staying authentic is always a good way to be cool or whatever. But say I wanted to launch, or whoever's listening wanted to launch a brand today, what would be kind of the strategies or even things you'd look for when starting a new brand or company?
So if you want to build your own brand, first, I think you have to see what this is about and how it relates to you. What is that personal story that can justify why you're doing it? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
just from the get-go out, why are you doing it? Why do you feel your offer and your brand is a better solution than what's out there? And it has to be crystal clear. There cannot be vague areas, because customers are so educated these days. They can look up anything anywhere in like 2 seconds, right? And compare quality, prices, order things, return things, and really find out for themselves what's better and why. So you have to tell the truth, and you have to deliver on your promises. You cannot disappoint the customers, because then they won't stick with you. The fact that we have such staying power is hopefully you see it's a testament to a promise being delivered and the quality that we promise, like even going well above and beyond of what they expect when they first get a pair of pants. So I think those 3 things are super important: is connecting your brand to your person, and why you're doing it, believing in it, and telling the truth about it, and then delivering on the promise to the customer is super important. And then once you have that customer, you have to like broaden and widen your audience and build around it and be super clear about who's the customer profile that loves you and why. Because then all your brand messaging has to be formulated around it. You have to repeatedly say the same thing. There's a simple example, it's you go to McDonald's for the same hamburger. Why? Because you want that to be always the same. I think that's the most important about a brand, is that they know what to expect, and it has to deliver on that expectation and beyond.
Absolutely. That story, the why, and the consistency. I also agree. And that's something, that's something Anatomie is doing as well. So good. But I'd love to know, what's maybe something that Anatomie does that not many consumers know about?
What is the question? I'm sorry?
What's the biggest thing Anatomie does that maybe some consumers don't know about?
Well, hopefully they know everything. If they don't know about it, then I'm doing a bad job. So let me think about it, what they might not know that we do well. Well, hopefully they all know how much you can just wash these things by hand, hang it up to dry, no dry cleaning, no ironing, and then you're like ready to go. That might not be so obvious from our website or just from looking us up on social media. That's a very cool thing about Anatomie, how you can pack 6 pieces that weigh only 3 pounds. So we basically make the perfect carry-on suitcase, not just in comfort and style, but the functionality of it. They might not know that it's an ideal carry-on wardrobe. But hopefully all of our story and features, everything's out there. Just a fun fact, we're Miami-based with about 13 countries everybody comes from, and we speak 9 different languages here, and we're open to the public. So that might be a cool thing they don't know about, is that you're able to come and shop with us in our warehouse. The front of it is set up as a little store. So if anybody transits through Miami, give us a call. We're happy to have people behind the scenes. Not many brands do that. They kind of hide, right?
Absolutely.
We are so open and love having people over and showing them around.
Well, that's really cool. That transparency, again, it's super key in building that authentic brand. What's some of your favorite social media networks? I know you mentioned that you've been not maybe so much promoting yourself, but being a little bit more in the forefront of the Anatomie brand. But what's kind of been your favorite social media networks?
So, with the Instagram Lives, I liked it because I was able to introduce our team. So it was really nice to show customers, like a customer service VIP stylist is Raquel. And it was really nice to be able to put her out there and introduce her so people can see her face and like really know who they're talking to. Same with some of the other team members, and Shawn's design team introduced themselves as well. So we were very transparent about how we design and pick the fabrics and the colors and, what they do back there. So I like it that we're able to like make little movies about it, right? And bring people behind the scenes so they can trust us, right? The brand building is also about trusting what the company does. I like being on LinkedIn because it's very high quality professionals in my network. And we have really great conversations and news and, CEO level information is being shared. So I like that. But that's about it.
That's a pretty good mix of networks there. But what's maybe something you're proud of that we haven't touched on the podcast so far?
I'm sorry?
What's something that you're proud of that we haven't touched on in the podcast so far?
You're asking very good questions, Joe. So, you're highlighting our skills and strengths as brand and company. So I think you're covering it. What am I proud of? My team, how they stick together and really literally every day they do their best. I'll give you an example. We had an opportunity for a pop-up store in the Hamptons. Call me crazy, but I took it this summer. And one of our two of our employees actually drove cross country because for us to be able to make it happen, we had to close our store in Denver and move the fixtures and the inventory to New York to the Hamptons. So two of my boys flew up to Denver, rented a truck, and drove cross country with everything in it and set up the store in literally 72 hours. So I'm proud of the effort that goes into making us successful as a team.
Well, that's amazing. Well, there's one question I can't not ask you. Obviously, you're a travel apparel company, designer travel apparel. But what's kind of been your favorite place to visit so far?
Well, I happen to love the islands, and I love sandbars in the Caribbean. We scuba dive with Chan, and my little 5-year-old girl is an amazing free diver already. She goes like 10 feet to the bottom of the ocean, even if it's murky and I can't see her. So I love being around, the ocean and dolphins and fish, wherever that can happen. Shawn loves Italy, obviously, because of the design inspiration. I'm from Budapest, so I love going back. We went to Vietnam last year, at the end of the year, working on the World Residences at Sea. We did a pop-up store, and of course, Hong Kong and the whole vibe over there was just fascinating. How young and smart those people are, dynamic. So I love that. I love going to Hawaii. I guess I'm a global citizen. Hard to pinpoint. We did a pop-up in Saint-Tropez for a while. So I love Sato, France. Obviously, I speak French, and I love the food and everything about it. I like the snow too. I like going to Colorado and be on the mountains. So yeah, I'm just like a happy camper anywhere.
Yeah, all of the above. You love all of the above.
Yes, all of the above. Yes. That was a long answer. Sorry.
No, that was perfect. Yeah. So only a few more questions here for you, Kate. I'd love to. This question I always love to ask because it always causes for great answers. But what's one question that you never get asked that you wish you would be asked?
That's one question I never get asked. I never even thought about that. Maybe the importance of investors and what's it like to be, a female, basically immigrant with no support in a brand new country that nobody seems to not care about, but just consider, as part of my package. My dad is a chemist, and my mom worked in a logistics company, so it's not like I come from some serial entrepreneur family, right? You have successful entrepreneurs in the U.S. where basically, wealthy kids come from wealthy parents, and they grew up around being told that anything's possible. I come from completely the opposite. It was a no saying, are you sure? Almost on the pessimistic side, more of a gray kind of culture, right? Not by choice, but just how it was, not blaming anybody about it. So I wish sometimes I was asked more about what's it like being in basically a new country and a new culture by yourself and putting it all off.
Absolutely. No, that's amazing. Only a couple more questions. I know I said that already, but I'd love to know. Earlier you mentioned that you moved a bunch of your operations to direct-to-consumer. You said about 90%. How was that transition like for you? How that's what kind of the biggest challenges to that, and kind of the pros and cons, if you will?
It's building up volume in the distribution. Is when you're selling retail dollars, less packages go out to make the same amount of revenue, right? When you're selling wholesale, you have bigger boxes through the door. So now, as we figured out, what's working and what's not working in terms of marketing on all of our platforms, I have to find a way to build volume up and move inventory at a faster pace or bigger pace. Something very interesting. We launched, we upgraded our website. God bless you, Canadians, with Shopify. I can only say good things about Shopify Plus. We launched Global E, so we're shipping worldwide now. We launched a really cool VIP program called the A Club, right? The Anatomie VIP Club. So it's called Join the A List. So yeah, all these things to go deeper, making your customer experience better, and keeping first-time buyers come back more, but then at the same time finding more first-time buyers as well.
Absolutely. Speaking of finding first-time buyers, what's kind of your favorites, or maybe a marketing trend that you see at the moment?
So the organic efforts are paying off more than the paid ones. And it's been like that for a couple of months. Versus last year, it was very predictable. I was able to give the agency $3 and know that we're going to get 12 out of, or 15 out, depending on the channel, right? Right now, we're successful with our own direct emails and our organic searches and all of our social media that we post ourselves. And like you said, put out authentic, sincere content with relevant information. But then the paid things are not working so well. And this has been industry-wide. No matter whose CEO you talk to, everybody's experiencing the same kind of turmoil around Facebook and, with everything going on. So that's tricky because it was such a spoiled environment, right? And now I have to make the uncertain certain in some magical way. So that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Absolutely. Where can our listeners connect with you online?
Anatomie.com is our platform. Our hashtags are Anatomie Style on Instagram and Facebook. So please follow us. The website's great. It has everything about our story, and all of our products are available. We actually moved a lot of our warehouse availability to our online warehouse. So we're fully stocked on all of our core essentials and new arrivals. Obviously, we moved inventory from the wholesale division. So great experiences await those who check it out.
Absolutely. And I challenge our listeners to go check it out as well. You guys, again, are doing such awesome things. And Kate, I really appreciate you being on the podcast. You're always a joy to talk to, and you're just vibrant and have lots of authenticity, and overall a great guest.
Thank you so much. Love to all Canadians listening. We have several board members and investors. So I'm saying virtual hi to them. They're in Ottawa and Montreal and Toronto and on the West Coast as well.
I appreciate that. And to end the podcast, we usually end the podcast with the guest saying one word or phrase to describe who they are. So my question to you, Kate, is what is one word or phrase that you use to describe Kate Boyer's brand?
Comfort and style like no other.
This episode of the CMO and Joe podcast has ended, but be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to help you create the profitable and successful business you've always dreamed of. And don't forget to rate and review so we can continue to bring you the best content. See you on the next episode.